Eli Turner had seen bad things in his 48 years, but nothing prepared him for the sight in front of him. A young nun was bent over a sun-baked boulder near the Rio Grande, gripping the stone like she was fighting for her last breath. Her face was flushed. Her voice cracked out in a trembling whisper that made his blood run cold. Amen. Please. Faster. Harder. For a split second, Eli thought she was praying through some kind of fever. Then he saw her knees buckling. He saw the way she was shaking, and he knew something was terribly wrong. Eli stepped forward slowly. Ma'am, you hearing me? You all right? She turned toward him with tears in her eyes and tried to speak, but the words tangled in her throat. Her legs gave out and she almost collapsed against the boulder. Eli caught her before she hit the ground. Her whole body was burning hot, way hotter than the sun could ever make her. Easy now. You're burning up. She tried to answer, but only managed a broken whisper. I drank the tonic. The merchant said it would help me stay awake on the road. Please, something's wrong. That told him everything he needed to know. Folks around Las Cruces had been talking about a slick-talking peddler selling miracle tonics that made people feel strange. Some said it was medicine. Some said it was sin in a bottle. Now here she was, a nun, alone by the river, shaking from something that sure as hell was not divine. Eli lifted her carefully and guided her to sit on a patch of shade beside his horse. She clutched at his arm like she was drowning. He could feel her pulse hammering under her skin. Something in her blood was working faster than any illness he had ever seen. Name's Eli Turner, he said quietly. I'm not going to hurt you. Just breathe. You hear me? She nodded weakly. I'm Sister Maria Elena. I was on my way to the mission. I think the tonic did something to me. But as he looked at the trembling girl in his arms, he realized something worse. If he brought her back into town in this condition, people wouldn't believe a word she said, and they sure wouldn't believe him. So the real question was simple. Would keeping her safe turn him into her only salvation? Or the man the whole town swore had ruined a nun? Sister Maria Elena tried to steady her breathing, but every time she pulled in air, her whole body shook, like she had been dropped straight into a fever dream. Eli Turner could see it clearly now. That tonic she drank was no simple pick-me-up. It had her pulse racing wild, her thoughts jumping everywhere, and her skin burning like she'd been standing too close to hell's own doorstep. Eli wet a cloth in the river and pressed it to her neck. She gasped like the cold water snapped her back into her body. Easy. Just breathe, he said. You're safe. I promise you that. But safe was not really the right word. Not out here under the New Mexico sun. Not with a nun shaking beside him in a way no nun should ever shake. She tried to sit up straighter. Her fingers dug into the dirt. I feel like my heart is running without me, she said. It's the tonic, Eli answered. Folks said it makes people act strange, sometimes worse. The girl closed her eyes like she was fighting something. Eli, I don't know what's happening to me. I can't think straight. Everything feels too strong, too close. He swallowed hard. He was a grown man who had seen more trouble than peace, but nothing humbled him like seeing fear in someone who usually carried faith. And it got worse when another wave of heat rolled over her. She leaned forward, grabbing his shirt as if she needed him just to stay upright. Her breath shook against his chest. Her voice cracked. I'm trying to stop it. I swear I'm trying. Eli steadied her shoulders. I know you're trying. This is not your fault. That merchant tricked you. You're just caught in the middle of it. For a moment, she couldn't look at him. Her fingers tightened around his sleeve like a child holding on in a storm. Back at the mission, they told us to keep our bodies quiet and our minds pure, she whispered. But out there by that rock, I felt things I'm not supposed to feel. What if God did see me like that? What if he turned his face away? Her voice broke on the last word. Shame and confusion rolled together until she couldn't tell which hurt more. Eli shook his head slowly. I don't think God runs from people who are hurting, he said. A bad man put poison in your veins. That's not the same as you choosing sin. She let out a shaky breath. It didn't fix everything, but something in her chest loosened just enough for her to keep breathing. But even as he said it, he could feel her trembling harder. like the tonic was pulling her past whatever line she normally lived behind. She pressed her forehead to his arm, breathing fast, fighting something she couldn't push down. "Eli, please don't leave me alone, not like this." He nodded. "I won't. I'm right here." For a moment, the river went quiet. The wind stilled. The world felt smaller, hotter, tighter around them. And Eli realized the real problem. If the tonic kept getting stronger, she would lose control of her body and her mind, and he would be the only thing she could cling to. A dangerous thought for a nun, a deadly one for a man already living on the edge of town gossip. And that brought one question crawling into his mind. If the tonic kept twisting her senses, what was she going to do when the sun finally went down? Eli kept close, watching her with the kind of silent worry only a man who had lost too much could carry. He offered her water. She drank like she had been wandering the desert for days. "You keep breathing slow," he said. The worst might pass soon, but even as he said it, he knew it was only half true. The tonic might wear off, sure, but the danger around them was only beginning to show itself. It started with the faint crunch of footsteps on dry grass, not animal, not wind, a man's weight. Eli heard it first. His jaw tightened. His hand fell to his holster by instinct. Maria Elena whispered, "Is someone there?" And that was when a figure stepped out from behind a cottonwood tree across the river bend. Silas Crow, the same smooth-talking peddler who had sold that cursed tonic to her mission. His smile was cut from bad intentions, the kind of smile that made honest men itch for a fight. "Well now," Silas called out, "looks like my little miracle drink worked." His eyes locked on the nun, then drifted to Eli's hand, still bracing her back. "I knew it would bring people together." Eli stood. "You poisoned her." She almost passed out. Silas chuckled like he was warming up for a lie. "Poison is a heavy word, friend. I sell opportunity. What folks do with it is between them and the Lord." Maria Elena shrank behind Eli, shame and fear mixing in her eyes. Eli stepped forward. The air turned tighter. "You come any closer and I will drop you in that river," he said. Silas raised both hands, but the smirk never left his face. "Easy. I only came for what is mine. The church was supposed to pay for those tonic crate. They owe me, and now that dear sister Maria has taken one. You two owe me too." Eli knew that tone. Blackmail wrapped in a salesman's smile. And in a town like Las Cruces, one rumor about a nun and a rancher alone by the river could burn reputations to the ground. Silas leaned in just enough for his words to hit hard. "Bring me my money by tomorrow, or I tell the whole mission what I saw today." He turned and walked away like a man who had already stacked the deck in his favor. As he left, he called over his shoulder, "And don't bother trying to talk your way out of it. I already told a few folks in town what I saw. By the time you ride in, people will be ready to believe the worst." Eli felt his jaw clench. That meant Silas was not just threatening them. He was running ahead of them, painting a dirty picture before they could even open their mouths. A man like that didn't need bullets to ruin you. He just needed enough ears willing to listen to a lie, but the real ending was far from written. And now Eli had one question burning inside him. How far would Silas go to break him if they refused to bow to him? If you're still with me, take a sip of your tea, but don't relax too much yet. This story is not done testing these two souls. Tell me what time it is where you are and where you're listening from. And if you enjoy stories like this, feel free to subscribe so you never miss the next chapter. Eli Turner didn't waste a second once Silas Crow disappeared behind the cottonwoods. He slung Maria Elena gently across his saddle, climbed up behind her, and pushed the horse toward Las Cruces. The sun was dropping low, throwing long shadows across the desert floor, and every mile felt heavier than the mile before. Maria Elena leaned back against him, still weak, her breath shaky but clearer than earlier. "Eli, if he tells the mission what he saw, they will never believe me." Eli tightened his grip on the reins. "They will believe the truth." She shook her head. "Truth does not always matter to people who expect you to be perfect." When they reached the edge of town, Eli slowed his horse. Folks were finishing up their evening chores. Lanterns were coming on. and whispers always traveled faster when the air was quiet like this. He helped Sister Maria Elena down. She steadied herself on his arm, her face pale but determined. I have to speak to Father Thomas. I need him to hear it from me. Eli nodded. I will go with you. Maria Elena pushed the door open, and inside they found Father Thomas with two townsfolk seated close, faces tight, voices low. Silas Crow stood behind them with his smug grin still glued to his face, a folded paper in his hand like it was some holy proof. There they are, Silas said, the rancher and the sister, who had themselves quite a time by the river. One of the men stepped forward. Father, I saw them from the ridge, he said. She was leaning on him in a way that didn't look right. The other man nodded quickly. Silas told us the same story on his way in. Said he caught them tangled up by the water. Silas held up the paper in his hand. And here's the account I wrote down for the sheriff, he added smoothly. Just doing my duty as an honest man. The room stiffened. Father Thomas frowned deeply. Sister Maria. Explain yourself. She stepped forward, hands shaking but voice steady. Father, that tonic he sold us was not holy medicine. It clouded my mind. It pushed my body into something I couldn't control. Eli Turner helped me. He didn't harm me. He saved me. Silas laughed. Saved you. Is that what we're calling it now? Eli stepped forward slow, his voice low and steady. You got something else to say, Silas. Say it to me. The tension in the room felt thick enough to break. Father Thomas held up a hand. The church will investigate this. Until then, Sister Maria will remain here. Eli could see the shame in her eyes, not for what happened, but for what people wanted to think happened. Eli, she whispered, I'm scared they will use me to bury the truth. He touched her shoulder gently. I'm not letting that happen. But outside the mission door, he saw Silas speaking quickly with two men who looked eager for trouble. And that's when Eli realized something important. Silas was not done, not even close. The real fight had not even begun. And the question now was simple. What was Silas planning for the night that was coming fast toward them? By the time that night finally came, the sky over Las Cruces was deep purple and the lanterns flickered like nervous hearts. Eli Turner knew Silas was not just a loud mouth anymore. He was a cornered man, and cornered men were dangerous. Eli rushed inside. Sister Maria Elena was standing near a broken window. Frightened but steady, he tried to drag me out. He said I was his proof. Eli stepped close, his voice calm. He is not taking you anywhere. Not tonight. Not ever again. Father Thomas entered moments later, followed by two townsfolk who had overheard the commotion. Silas was outside yelling that the church owed him money and that Eli and the sister had betrayed him. But something was different now. For the first time, people were truly looking at him, and not with fear, with doubt. Before anyone could answer him, a ranch hand stepped out from the edge of the crowd. Eli recognized the man by sight. He sold me that same tonic, the ranch hand said. Told me it would make me strong enough to work 2 days in one. Instead, it dropped me in my bunk shaking like a leaf. I near lost my job over it. An older woman spoke up next, her hands wringing a faded handkerchief. My grandson drank that bottle he sold me, she said. His fever climbed so high I thought I would bury him. Silas took my money and never came back. It was Maria Elena who walked toward the door first. Not Eli. Not Father Thomas. Her. She stepped out into the cool night and faced the crowd that had gathered. Silas sold poison to the mission. It made me weak. It clouded my mind. And he used it to threaten us. Her voice rose. I broke no vow. I broke nothing except my fear of a man who profits from pain. Silas tried to speak, but the crowd had already turned. Someone grabbed his arm. Someone else took his bag. And by the time the sheriff arrived, Silas was yelling into the wind, claiming innocence to a crowd that no longer cared. In the days that followed, Maria Elena helped Father Thomas speak with the sheriff, the ranch hand, and the old woman, and two others came forward one by one. with their words and the bottles they still had. The law finally had enough to hold Silas for what he had done. When the dust settled, Maria Elena stood in the quiet mission courtyard and looked up at the sky. "I still feel ashamed sometimes," she admitted to Eli. "Not because of what you did, because of what I felt when that tonic twisted me around. I keep wondering if God heard me when I was whispering on that rock." Eli watched her for a long moment. "Maybe he heard the part of you that wanted to live," he said. "Maybe that's the part he was listening to all along." "I cannot stay here," she said. "Not in the mission, not like before. I want to help people who got hurt the way I did. People who trusted the wrong man and think they are ruined forever." A month later, a wagon headed south rolled out of Las Cruces carrying supplies for a small clinic near the border. Maria Elena rode on the bench beside the driver, a satchel of worn prayer books at her feet and a notebook in her lap. Eli rode alongside for the first day, his horse keeping pace with the wagon wheels. At sunset, they stopped near the same river bend where they first met. The air was softer now. No fever, no tonic, just water and wind. "You sure you don't want someone out there with you?" Eli asked. She looked at him, eyes steady. "I won't be alone," she said. "Not after this. I will carry what you did for me wherever I go. That's enough for now." They said goodbye without a promise and without a ring, but something passed between them that was stronger than both. A kind of quiet understanding that life might bring their roads together again, or it might not. Either way, they would keep walking. And now, as you listen, I want to ask you something. Have you ever met someone who pulled you out of a moment you thought would break you? Have you ever walked away from a life that no longer fit, just to search for something better waiting on the road ahead? If this story moved you even a little, tap like so more folks can find it. And if you enjoy these true-hearted Western tales, feel free to subscribe and stay with me for the next ride. Now tell me, what time is it where you are, and where are you listening from?